So hello everyone. Today we are going to start part B of chapter 2, that is methods of inquiry in psychology. So first topic is survey research. So survey research came into existence to know about the opinions, attitude of people and social facts. At the very initial stage, they were more concerned about the factual information. Like they want to know about the literate population of a place, they want to know about the rural and urban composition and so on. But with time, they started exploring other topics. Like they started studying about what are people's opinion about the nature of power, like Panchayati Raj, what are people's biasness, what are people's attitude towards a certain topic. Okay, so in this way it got evolved and made more insightful in its nature. Now under this there is personal interview. So in interview there are two components. Okay, first is interviewer and second is interviewee. The interviewer is the person who asks the question and the interviewee is the person who responds to the question. Okay, so in simple word, interview is a purposeful activity to know about the factual information, the opinion and attitude of the respondents. Mostly it is done on a face-to-face basis, but sometimes it is also conducted through your telephonic conversation. So there are two types of interviews. First is structured or standardized interview, in which the questions are prepared beforehand, which we call as interview schedule. The second type of interview is unstructured or non-standardized interview. In this, there is flexibility in making decisions about what kind of questions you want to ask to the interviewee. Okay. So talking about the questions, there are two types of questions. First is open-ended questions. Now, as the name suggests, in open-ended questions, there is flexibility in the part of the respondent that they choose the way they want to answer. Like if I ask you the question like, how was your day? Or what is your opinion about gender equality? In this kind of questions, you have the proper flexibility in whichever way you want to answer. You can add up your personal experience, you can add up any kind of story for reference, you can say it elaborately, you can say it briefly. So it is up to the respondent. The other type of question is close-ended question. In close-ended question, you have to give a particular or specific answer. Like it can be the factual answer or it can be yes or no. So if I ask you that how many siblings you have, or if I ask you what is your school name, or tell me the name of the college from which you graduated, what was your degree and all this. So in this type of question you have to give a factual information. So then is participants in an interview schedule. Okay, first is individual to individual. That means there is only one interviewer and there is only one interviewee. Okay, after that there is individual to group. That means there is only one interviewer who interviews to a group of interviewee. Okay, example is focus group discussion. So in focus group discussion, the interviewer ask or give a topic of discussion about which the members will discuss. So if the topic is Bitcoin, the members have to discuss upon that, and at the end of the session they will get a rough idea about what Bitcoin is. Okay, then is your group to individual. There is a group of interviewer who interviews a single interviewee. Okay, example is your job interviews, or for reference you can watch the UPSC mock interviews. It is the perfect example for it. Then the fourth one is group to group. So here there is a group of interviewers who interviews a group of interviewees. Now talking about the advantages, It definitely helps to get an in-depth information. It also helps in selection of suitable candidates. It also helps in knowing the cause of the problem. So if it is used by a counselor and a psychologist, definitely it will help them to know about the cause of the problem about the client. And it is quite adaptable and adjustable to individual situations, and you can use them with children and illiterate people as well. Now then comes the disadvantages. It is quite time consuming. Sometimes you may require 2 to 3 hours or even more than that to interview a person. Then there are biasness of interviewers. So if the interviewer is biased towards certain topics or biased towards certain gender, then it can definitely pollute the result. Then third thing is, it is also not that much suitable when it comes to personal matters. Then is your questionnaire survey. So in questionnaire survey, as I have already told you what is the nature of close-ended and open-ended question, and the questionnaire survey is the most common, versatile, low-cost self-report method to obtain information. So in questionnaires, there can be questions where you have to just answer whether it is true or false, right or wrong, and sometimes a rating scale may be there for you to evaluate and then answer it. Now talking about the advantages, it helps to know about the background and the demographic information, like about the past experience, about your opinions, about your aptitude, about your interest, about a particular topic, right? So if I am having a questionnaire of study habits, so after that definitely I will be able to understand about the participant attitude about it, their opinion, their past experience in some way or the other. Then comes a disadvantage. Here the disadvantage is when it is conducted through mails, there is poor response. Like the people, they don't take it seriously. They feel like, why I have to answer it. So then is your telephonic survey. As the name suggests, it is conducted through telephone. Okay, here the advantages are it is less time consuming and it lowers the expenditure, and it can also be used for conducting the surveys. But the disadvantages are that there is a possibility that the respondents would be not so cooperative. They may be rude, they may be reluctant, and they may give some superficial responses. And also there can be biased kind of results as well. The next topic is psychological testing. So it means that they are always objective and standardized in nature, and they mainly focus on the psychological attributes like your intelligence, your aptitude, your interest, values. Now from objectivity, I mean if 2 or more researchers are there and if they are administering a psychological test on the same group of people, so more or less they have to come up with same value. If there is a lot of difference in the results of it, then we can't say the test was objective. So there are 3 important things that we have to take care while conducting any kind of psychological test. So first is your reliability. Now reliability means the consistency of the scores obtained by an individual on the same test but on different occasions. So to measure the reliability of the scores, there are 2 ways. First is your retest reliability. So if you have conducted a test on a group of people, and after 3, 4 or 5 months you are conducting the same test on same people, so after that if you are analyzing the results and you are getting to know that okay, the scores are more or less the same, then your test is reliable, and if it is not, then it is not at all reliable. The second method is split half reliability. In split half reliability, if there is a questionnaire, you are splitting into two halves, that if it is a column A and column B, and the questions which are there in the different columns, they have to correlate with each other. This is also one of the method. The second thing is validity. Now validity refers to the question that does the test measures what it claims to. So if you are conducting a test to know about the intelligence, so after conducting the test you have to analyze, okay, from the data or from the score, I am getting any kind of information about their intelligence, or I am getting something else. So next is norms. So norms refers to the normal average performance of the people, which is very helpful for the researcher to categorize or to interpret the test results of individual people. So if you have conducted a test upon 1,000 people, and after the results you have roughly made one chart by using statistical methods, that if the score is between this and this range, then you can say the intelligence is above average or below average, or it is average. So in this way, the researcher, they prepare the norms. So next topic is about types of test. So based upon the administration, there are two types of test. First is individual test. So as the name suggests, here the test is administered on one person at a time, where the researcher is also required to do the rapport formation. The second is group test. So here the test is administered on a number of people at the same time, and because of the number of participants, the researcher can't do the rapport formation. Then based upon the language usage, first is your verbal test. So here there is use of language, and here you can give your answer verbally. The second is non-verbal test. Here there is no use of language, but there is use of symbols, patterns, pictures, depictions. The third one is your performance test. So here the subject is required to actually perform a task, like it can be related to solving blocks, arranging blocks, or solving any kind of puzzles, or solving Rubik's cube, and so on. Then is your based upon the difficulty level, the first test is your speed test. So here you have to give a answer which is time based. Okay, for example, the KBC question, so you are given 30 seconds, and within that time you have to give the correct answer. And the other thing is your power test. Here the focus is not upon whether it is time based or not. The focus is upon increasing the difficulty level of the questions. The next topic is about the case studies. So case studies help us to understand about the factors, the causes. It also helps us to frame different psychotherapies, and with the use of case studies only the psychologists were able to understand about different concepts like fear, traumas, then your desires, traumatic experience of the people, and so on. It also helps us to get detailed information about people's experiences in life, and it is a very important research tool in the field of your clinical psychology and developmental psychology. Now, talking about the advantages, case studies provide us an in-depth information about the person. The disadvantage is that if you are conducting the case study upon one person, then there is a question mark before the validity of it. Okay. Then the second problem is the psychologist or the researcher have to be very, very careful while choosing the methods of data collection. If there is a wrong combination, definitely the results of the case study will be polluted. The next topic is about analysis of data. So under this, the first topic is your quantitative method. So quantitative methods, they are used in experimental methods, they are used in structured interview, they are used in psychological testings, questionnaires, and so on. So here the responses, they are recorded in a scaled form, and then the researcher have to give a number to each of the questions, each of the responses, like whether it is right or wrong. Then after aggregating the score, the researcher will get to know what is the level of that participant about that particular attribute. So if there is a questionnaire of questionnaire upon intelligence, so after the test, after aggregating the score, the researcher will get to know that what is the intelligence level of the participants. Now it is a very objective way of measuring the data, and there is high use of statistical methods. Next is your qualitative method, which is also called as subjective method. Here the data which are collected, they are in a descriptive form, and there is two types of analysis as well. First is narrative analysis, means the data are in descriptive form or they are the narratives, whereas the other one is your content analysis, where you actually have to find out the thematic categories based upon the samples from the data. So these are the two analyses. The next topic is about limitation of psychological inquiry. First is lack of true zero point. In psychological measurement, there is no true zero point because no person in the world has zero intelligence, or no person in the world has zero study habit. So in that case, the psychologists, they choose a point as a zero point for further studies. But the problem comes while analyzing of the data, that they get to know that the difference between the first and the second is not at all same with the second and the third. The second point is your relative nature of psychological tools. So as we know, psychological tests, they are formed keeping in view about the characteristic features about that particular context. So it also needs to be developed, refined, get adapted to different context in which it is used. So if I am using a intelligence questionnaire for the students from urban areas, I cannot use the same questionnaire for the students from rural areas. I need to adapt, I need to modify in that case to keep it as fair as possible. The third problem is your subjective interpretation of qualitative data. So as we know, qualitative data, they are in descriptive form, so they are subjective in nature. So there is rigorous interpretation in the part of researcher as well as in the part of the person who is providing that data. So in that case, sometimes it can be the biasness of the researcher, and sometimes can be the other problems which can pollute the results. So finally, last topic of the chapter, ethical issues. The first point is your voluntary participation. That means the person on whom you want to conduct the study, they should have the choice whether they want to be a part of that research or not, and there should be freedom to even withdraw from the research without any penalty once it has begun. The second ethical issue is your informed consent. So the participants of the research, they should know about what is going to happen with them during that study or during that research. So the researcher is required to talk about the nature of the experiment, the nature of the study before its actual commencement. The third point is debriefing. Now debriefing means is to ensure that the participant, while leaving the study, they are in the same physical, mental state as they have entered. So in case if the researcher finds that any participant is feeling anxious because of that or during that course of study, so the researcher is required to even debrief the people or provide counseling so that the participant will be relaxed and they will be in comfortable state of mind. The fourth ethical issue is sharing a result with the participant. So it is obligatory for the researcher to go back to the participants and share the result. Now here there is two advantages. First, it fulfills the expectations of the participant. So if you are a part of the research or a part of a study, you want to know about, okay, I want to know about where in which category I belong to when it comes to study habits or when it comes to intelligence, I want to know. So in this case you fulfills it and there is no disappointment. The second advantage is the participant may also share their opinion about what they feel about the results. Like, do they feel that the result is biased? Do they feel the result is accurate? So in that manner the researcher will get more insights into it. The last and the most important topic is your confidentiality of data source. Participants have the right to privacy and researchers shouldn't exploit their confidence by revealing their identity or sharing some information with other people. The most effective way is to not record their identities, and if for some reason you have made that list, it should be destroyed as soon as the research is done. So with this, I want to end this video. If you like my explanation, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and if you have any kind of doubt, comment down below. And I will link the handwritten notes in the description. Thank you and have a great day.